The conference room went dead silent as Roger Garrison unfolded my resignation letter. His confident smirk dissolved like sugar in hot coffee. Those hands that had been so steady when he announced Zachary's promotion now trembled against the crisp white paper. 9 years of carrying this department on my shoulders, 9 years of record-breaking numbers, and he thought I would just smile and train the golden boy who could not even pass Business 101. Speaking of workplace karma and standing up for what you have earned, this story hits different. My name is Daniel Vance, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the senior sales executive at Garrison Enterprises, a mid-sized technology firm in Chicago. My parents ran a small diner for 38 years, serving everyone from executives to students with the same warm smile. They taught me that success means nothing if you forget where you came from, and that empathy is not weakness, it is strength. Those lessons shaped every decision I made in my career, including the one that turned Roger's world upside down. The morning started like any other Tuesday. Coffee was brewing in the break room, keyboards were clicking, and phones were ringing with that particular rhythm that meant deals were closing. I was reviewing the quarterly projections when Roger's assistant, Chloe Webb, appeared at my cubicle with that tight smile that screamed bad news was incoming. She told me that Roger wanted everyone in conference room A in 15 minutes. All hands meetings only happened for 2 reasons: celebrating major wins or announcing restructures. Given that we had just closed the Patterson account, the biggest contract in company history, thanks to my team's 3-month hustle, celebrations seemed likely. I grabbed my tablet and headed down the hall, nodding to teammates who looked equally curious. The conference room was packed. My entire sales team, 15 people who had become more like family than colleagues over the years, filled the chairs around the long mahogany table. Roger stood at the head, wearing his expensive Navy suit and that shark smile he reserved for board meetings. Beside him stood a young man who could not have been more than 24, wearing khakis that needed ironing and a dress shirt 2 sizes too big. "Thanks for gathering on short notice," Roger began, his voice booming with false enthusiasm. He said he had exciting news about the future of our sales division. As we all knew, we were experiencing unprecedented growth. The Patterson deal that my team and I closed last month put us at 340% over target for the year. Polite applause rippled through the room. I caught my colleague Justin Pierce's eye. He mouthed, "Bonus," and I shrugged. Maybe corporate finally recognized our value. "This growth means we need strong leadership to scale even higher," Roger continued. He said he was thrilled to announce a new position, Director of Sales Operations. This person would oversee strategy, mentor our existing executives, and spearhead our expansion into the West Coast markets. My spine straightened. Director of Sales Operations. That was the role I had been angling for since my 5th year. I had submitted formal proposals, taken on extra projects, and mentored new hires on my own time. Every performance review for the past 6 years had the same note: Daniel demonstrates exceptional leadership potential. I am pleased to introduce Zachary Garrison, who will be stepping into this vital role effective immediately, Roger announced. The room's energy shifted instantly. Zachary, the young man in the wrinkled khakis, gave an awkward wave. Several team members glanced at me, confusion written across their faces. Justin's mouth fell open. Roger claimed that Zachary recently completed his studies in business management and brought fresh perspectives that would help us innovate, clapping his nephew on the shoulder. The family resemblance was unmistakable. Same sharp nose, same thin lips, same way of looking at people like they were quarterly reports instead of humans. Completed his studies. That was corporate speak if I had ever heard it. Chloe had mentioned a few weeks back that Roger's nephew had dropped out of the University of Illinois after failing most of his sophomore year classes. The family had been in crisis mode, trying to figure out what to do with a young man who had burned through a trust fund partying instead of studying. Roger announced that Zachary would shadow our senior team this week before fully transitioning into leadership, and he expected everyone's full cooperation. The meeting ended with more hollow applause. People filed out whispering. I stayed seated, my tablet screen blurring as rage and disbelief warred in my chest. 9 years. 9 years of arriving early, staying late, sacrificing weekends and holidays. 9 years of exceeding every metric, closing impossible deals, and building relationships that turn cold leads into loyal clients. 9 years of waiting for the recognition that apparently meant nothing when nepotism came knocking. Justin lingered by the door until the room cleared, telling me that the situation was insane and that I had earned that position 10 times over. I replied that experience did not matter when you shared DNA with the boss. He asked if I was going to talk to Roger, but I knew there was no point since the decision was made. I stood, smoothing my trousers, and resolved that I was not sticking around to watch this train wreck. I was choosing myself for once. The decision crystallized as I said it. Some lines once crossed cannot be uncrossed. This was mine. I spent Tuesday afternoon at my desk working with an eerie calm. My team kept stopping by, expressing their outrage, but I deflected and kept my plans close. By 4 o'clock, I had a draft resignation letter saved on my personal laptop. I walked around the floor one last time, knowing my tenure here was drawing to a close. That evening, I sat in my apartment overlooking the Chicago skyline, watching the sun paint the city gold and orange. My phone buzzed with texts from colleagues expressing outrage on my behalf. One was from Brenda Cole, my top account manager, reminding me of the 9 years of effort I had poured into the company, only for it to be handed to a novice. Another text came from Eric in IT, who mentioned that Zachary had asked him for the meaning of the acronym CRM. The young man did not know that it meant customer relationship management, showing he lacked even basic industry knowledge. I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop to refine my resignation letter. It had to be professional and brief, making clear exactly what they were losing without sounding bitter. Wednesday morning, I arrived at the office with 2 copies of the letter, one for Roger and one for Human Resources. I had also prepared a detailed transition document outlining my active accounts and pending deals. Zachary was in my cubicle when I arrived, sitting in my chair and scrolling through my computer files. I told him sharply that it was my personal workspace and he needed permission before accessing my files. He rolled his eyes and told me to relax, claiming he was just trying to learn from one of the best. The audacity made my teeth ache. I told him those accounts represented years of relationship building, not files to be skimmed in an hour. He brushed it off, asking how hard it could be, and mentioning he had been watching online videos about sales techniques all week. I took a slow breath, reminding myself that in 90 minutes he would no longer be my problem. I spent the next hour copying my performance reviews and commendations for my own records, ensuring no confidential company data was taken. Then, I requested a meeting with Roger through Chloe Webb. She scheduled me for 10:30. Those 90 minutes crawled by like cold honey. I packed my personal items, including photos of my parents at their diner's 25th anniversary and a glass paperweight my team had given me. Brenda stopped by, saw the cardboard box, and looked devastated. She asked about the Reynolds account presentation scheduled for next week, but I assured her that she and Justin could handle it since they knew the account as well as I did. She hugged me, saying the place would not be the same. At 10:30, I walked into Roger's office, which was filled with luxury furniture and abstract art. He sat behind his massive desk, typing. I placed the white envelope in front of him and announced my resignation, effective 3 weeks from today. Roger's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. He opened the envelope and read the brief letter twice. The color drained from his face, leaving him waxy and pale under the lights. He set the letter down and told me not to be hasty, offering to discuss my career path. I told him there was nothing to discuss. He tried to justify his decision by claiming Zachary was family and the organization needed to support him. I told him calmly that I saw the big picture, which was that 9 years of excellence mattered less than a last name. Roger tried to threaten me, saying my departure would look impulsive and damage my reputation. I countered that my reputation was built on results, not on staying where I was undervalued. He stood abruptly, his chair hitting the window, and shouted that I could not just leave active accounts worth millions, including the Patterson contract. I told him he should have planned for that before promoting someone with zero experience. Roger's face flushed red, and he accused me of being selfish and abandoning the team. I told him I was setting a boundary after sacrificing years of my life for fair treatment that was not available here. He yelled that if I threw away my career over pride, I should not expect a reference. I maintained my composure, walked out, and left him fuming. Back at my cubicle, I forwarded the transition notes to Roger and Human Resources, then sent a farewell email to my team. Within minutes, my inbox was flooded with supportive responses. Brenda came to my desk again, suggesting a mass resignation, but I urged her not to burn her bridges and to know her worth. I left the building by noon, carrying my box into the bright afternoon. The first few days of freedom were peaceful. I slept in, ran along the lakeshore, and updated my resume. 5 days after my resignation, Catherine Barlow from Apex Solutions, our main competitor, called me. She mentioned a mutual contact had told her I was exploring options and invited me to a lunch meeting at the Bridge Bistro on Monday. Our lunch lasted 2 hours. Catherine was direct, explaining that Apex wanted to build a new enterprise division. She offered me the position of Vice President of Enterprise Solutions, with a $3 million starting budget and a base salary of $220,000, plus performance bonuses that could push it past $300,000. I agreed to review the written contract. By Friday, I had signed the offer, setting my start date for 3 weeks later. I was determined to show Roger what real leadership looked like, and the opportunity at Apex was the perfect vehicle to prove my value to the entire industry. I felt a surge of energy knowing that my skills were highly valued in the open market, and I looked forward to building a team that focused on merit, respect, and exceptional performance. Before I could even start my new role at Apex Solutions, the leadership at Garrison Enterprises tried to strike back. I received a formal cease and desist letter from Roger's legal department, claiming that I was bound by a strict non-compete agreement that barred me from working for any competitor in the Midwest for 2 years. They threatened to sue both me and Apex Solutions if I did not decline the vice president position. I knew for a fact that I had never signed such an agreement, as I had refused to sign their updated employee handbook the previous year because of its unfair terms. I immediately handed the document to my legal team at Apex Solutions, who were eager to protect their new executive. My attorneys conducted a forensic analysis of the document Roger had submitted to the court. They discovered that Roger Garrison had physically forged my signature onto the non-compete contract. In Illinois, forgery is a severe felony under Section 5/17(3) of the Illinois Compiled Statutes, which carries significant prison time and heavy penalties. My lawyers filed an emergency motion to dismiss the injunction and expose this misconduct. To build our case, we hired a renowned handwriting expert, Dr. Charles Fletcher, who spent hours analyzing my genuine signature against the forged document. During the hearing, Dr. Fletcher presented irrefutable proof that my signature had been copied electronically from an old performance review and pasted onto the contract. The judge, Edith Thornton, was absolutely furious when she saw the overlapping pixels and alignment lines under magnification. She declared the non-compete agreement void ab initio, meaning void from the very beginning, and lectured Garrison Enterprises attorneys for bringing a fraudulent document into her courtroom. She stated that using the legal system to enforce forged documents was an insult to the court. With the non-compete dismissed, my lawyers immediately filed a counterclaim against Roger Garrison and his company for malicious prosecution, abuse of process, and breach of fiduciary duty. We demanded substantial damages for the emotional distress and reputational harm caused by the fraudulent lawsuit. The board of directors at Garrison Enterprises was horrified to learn that their director of sales had engaged in forgery to cover up his nepotism. They realized they were facing a massive legal disaster that could ruin the company's reputation and lead to criminal charges against Roger. Meanwhile, Zachary was struggling to run the sales department. He decided to use a proprietary predictive sales analytics model and negotiation framework that I had developed independently on my own time over the course of 3 years. I had copyrighted this software and framework under my own name to protect my intellectual property. When Justin Pierce informed me that Zachary was using my system to pitch clients, I instructed my legal team to file a federal copyright infringement claim under Title 17 United States Code, Section 106. We obtained a federal temporary restraining order that prohibited Garrison Enterprises from using the software or any of its outputs. U.S. Marshals served the order, forcing their IT department to shut down the entire sales pipeline system immediately. Without the proprietary tool, Zachary's team was completely blind. They had no access to client history, predictive pricing, or lead qualification algorithms. The consequences were immediate and catastrophic for Roger's department. Zachary tried to manage the Reynolds account presentation without my proprietary predictive data, attempting to wing it using the basic sales videos he had watched online. He ignored all the detailed notes I had left in the shared drive, believing he knew better. During the pitch, he insulted the client's procurement director by suggesting their current business model was obsolete and promising features that our software could not support. The client was insulted by his arrogance and withdrew their contract, costing Garrison Enterprises $4 million in potential revenue. When Roger tried to force Brenda Cole to salvage the relationship, she refused, stating that Zachary's misrepresentations had destroyed the client's trust. The department fell into utter chaos as more clients began to complain about Zachary's unprofessional behavior and lack of industry knowledge. The board realized that promoting a college dropout was causing a major crisis, and the legal pressure from my copyright and forgery claims began to take a heavy toll on the firm's stability, leaving them vulnerable to market competitors and public scrutiny. To make matters worse, several major clients, who had worked with me for nearly a decade, began calling my personal number, expressing concern about the sudden changes. They felt uncomfortable with Zachary's aggressive and unpolished sales tactics. I informed them that while I had left Garrison Enterprises, I was bound by ethics not to solicit their business directly, but I encouraged them to make whatever decision was best for their organizations. Within 48 hours, 2 other key clients requested meetings with the board to demand that their accounts be handled by someone with actual industry experience. The board members were increasingly panicked as they watched their primary revenue streams threaten to evaporate overnight. The legal team at Garrison Enterprises tried to negotiate a settlement regarding the forged contract, but my attorneys advised me to reject their initial offers. We wanted to ensure that Roger was held fully accountable for his actions, and we refused to let them sweep this forgery under the rug. I spent my evenings reviewing case documents, feeling a deep sense of justification as the facts came to light. The disaster at Garrison Enterprises continued to unfold over the next few months. Zachary lost another major account, the Oak Ridge Group, because he promised custom integrations that the product team had already stated were impossible to build. When the client realized they had been misled, they threatened a lawsuit for fraudulent misrepresentation. Roger had to intervene personally, offering a massive discount to prevent them from suing, which wiped out the company's profit margin on the deal. Roger then tried to blame Brenda Cole, suggesting she was not being a corporate player by failing to support his nephew's promises. Brenda, remembering my advice to know her worth, told Roger that respect was earned, not demanded, and that Zachary had no business leading the division. When Roger threatened her job, Brenda made the choice easy for him and resigned on the spot. Brenda called me that afternoon, and I immediately offered her a position as senior account manager at Apex Solutions. She accepted enthusiastically and started 2 weeks later. She was thrilled to be in an environment where her expertise was valued and she did not have to deal with family politics. Within a month, Justin Pierce also resigned from Garrison Enterprises, unable to tolerate Zachary's incompetence and Roger's constant cover-ups. I hired Justin as an account executive, and soon after, 3 other key members of my former sales team, including Stephen, Alice, and Nora, joined us at Apex Solutions. We had a wonderful reunion in our new office space, sharing a laugh about Zachary's bizarre ideas of salesmanship and feeling a massive weight lifted off our shoulders. By the end of my 3rd month at Apex, I had built a powerhouse division staffed entirely with talented professionals who knew how to deliver results. Our synergy was immediate. We spent hours structuring our enterprise sales pipeline and aligning our strategies with the developers at Apex. To make the transition seamless for our clients, Brenda and Justin established a dedicated onboarding system that allowed us to address customer concerns within minutes. We worked collaboratively, sharing files and resources freely. We also set up mentorship pairs, matching seasoned executives with junior team members. Unlike the fear-driven hierarchy under Roger, our new environment encouraged open discussion and active problem-solving, which immediately boosted team morale and overall productivity. In our fourth month, we landed a massive systems integration contract with a national retail chain worth $7 million over 3 years. We prepared for weeks, refining our pitch, developing detailed technical specifications, and presenting a cohesive plan. The client was impressed by our preparation and professionalism, contrasting us directly with the other firms they had previously consulted. We celebrated the win as a team with a wonderful dinner at a restaurant overlooking the river, knowing we had achieved it through hard work and integrity. This deal put our division on the map, proving that a culture of respect could outperform nepotism in every business metric. The national retailer had specifically mentioned that they chose us because they were tired of sales teams making promises they could not keep, which was a direct jab at their experience with Zachary's team, who had also bid on the contract. It was a sweet victory for all of us, especially Brenda and Justin, who had spent countless hours detailing the database schema and security protocols to ensure the client's peace of mind. Meanwhile, the situation at Garrison Enterprises grew increasingly desperate. Zachary lasted only 6 months as Director of Sales Operations before the board intervened. The division was hemorrhaging clients, and revenue projections had plummeted by 45% year over year. The board hired an independent consulting firm to audit the department, and the findings were damning. The report highlighted rampant nepotism, lack of leadership competency, and the severe legal liabilities caused by Roger's actions. The board forced Roger Garrison to step down from active management and transition into a non-voting advisory role, which was a public embarrassment for him. Zachary was quietly reassigned to a meaningless special projects role where he could do no further damage to client relationships. 8 months after my resignation, I ran into Roger Garrison at an industry conference in Miami. I was sitting in the hotel lounge when he approached me, looking tired and aged. The arrogant director who had yelled at me in his office was gone. He ordered 2 glasses of white wine and offered me a genuine apology. He admitted that promoting Zachary was a terrible mistake and that trying to enforce the forged non-compete was an act of desperation. He confessed that losing me had triggered the collapse of his department and cost him his career. He mentioned that Zachary was actually back in school, studying hospitality management at a state university, and was much happier in a service role than in corporate sales. He admitted that his wife was furious with him for risking their family's standing to support his nephew's failed career. I accepted his apology, feeling the last remnants of my resentment fade away. I realized that my departure was the catalyst for his company's reform and my own extraordinary success. I shook his hand, noting that sometimes the hardest path leads to the best outcomes for everyone involved. I left him sitting alone at the bar, feeling a deep sense of closure and satisfaction as I walked back to my room, ready to focus entirely on the expanding horizons of my new role at Apex Solutions. 3 years after I walked out of Garrison Enterprises, Apex Solutions went public. The transition to a publicly traded company was a massive success, and my division had grown to 95 employees. We accounted for 48% of the company's total revenue and maintained a 96% client retention rate. The equity package I had received when I joined Apex was now worth several $1,000,000, securing my financial future. I was promoted to executive vice president and received an invitation to join the board of directors. More than the wealth or titles, I was proud of the culture we had created. Our division was known as a place where talent was nurtured, effort was rewarded, and leadership supported its staff. We spent hours mentoring young developers and account managers, ensuring they understood that their voices were valuable and respected. We had established a mentorship program that partnered with local universities to help students from disadvantaged backgrounds enter the technology sector. Through this program, I met Nolan, a brilliant young man who had grown up in the foster care system and struggled to find opportunities. We provided him with training and mentorship, and within 3 years, Nolan became one of our top-performing account executives. He was initially very nervous during client pitches, but through regular practice and support, he developed an authentic, warm style that clients loved. Seeing Nolan succeed and close a major logistics deal on his own was far more rewarding than any corporate accolade. He told me that our program had saved his career, giving him the confidence to believe he belonged in the corporate world despite his difficult childhood. Hearing those words from him was the greatest confirmation that my departure from Garrison Enterprises had been the right choice, not just for my own career, but for the lives I would be able to touch and improve in the years that followed. One afternoon, my assistant notified me of an urgent call from Lawrence Atwood, the founder and chief executive officer of Garrison Enterprises. I took the call out of curiosity. Lawrence was direct, informing me that the board had decided to make permanent leadership changes and was transitioning Roger to retirement. He offered me the position of chief sales officer, reporting directly to him. He offered a base salary of $320,000, a full equity package, and complete authority to rebuild the company's sales culture. He admitted that the board recognized Roger's errors and wanted my leadership to restore their reputation. He explained that Roger's fraudulent actions had severely damaged client relationships, and they needed an executive with unquestioned integrity to lead them. I thanked Lawrence for the offer but told him honestly that I was building something special at Apex Solutions that aligned with my values. I explained that I had found a culture of trust and autonomy that I was unwilling to leave. He was disappointed but understood, leaving the door open for the future. I called Catherine Barlow to discuss the call, and she reminded me that I had earned the right to choose the path that made me happy, not just the one that looked impressive on paper. I knew she was right. Returning to Garrison Enterprises would have been about chasing validation for past wounds, whereas staying at Apex was about embracing my future. I declined Lawrence's offer with a clear conscience, wishing them success in their rebuilding efforts. My parents, who had retired after running their diner for 38 years, flew to Chicago to attend a keynote speech I delivered at a national business leadership summit. Sitting in the front row of a packed auditorium containing over 1,000 professionals, their faces shone with pride as I spoke. I shared my journey, emphasizing the importance of documenting your value, knowing your worth, and having the courage to walk away when you are not respected. After the presentation, my father squeezed my shoulder and told me that I had done it on my own terms. That moment was the ultimate validation. Knowing your worth is not about arrogance. It is about survival. If you stay in a toxic environment, you allow others to define your value. Walking away is a risk, but it is also the only way to find where you truly belong. I never regretted leaving Roger Garrison's office that Tuesday morning. It was the hardest decision of my life, but it led me to build a career and a life of true purpose, surrounded by people who valued integrity and respect above all else. As I stood in the lobby after the keynote, greeting attendees and signing copies of our industry report, I realized how far I had come since that silent conference room. The fear and uncertainty that had gripped me when I walked out with my cardboard box had been replaced by a deep, unshakable confidence. The corporate world often tells us to stay silent, to accept poor treatment in exchange for security, and to wait our turn even when the game is rigged. But my journey proved that real security comes from your own competence and the relationships you build along the way. I looked at my parents, who were smiling and talking with some of my junior executives, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had taught me that integrity was the only currency that truly mattered, and that lesson had guided me through the darkest moments of my career. I was no longer defined by the promotion I had been denied. I was defined by the community I had built and the lives I had helped shape. The applause from the auditorium still echoed in my mind, a sweet reminder that choosing yourself is always the ultimate victory.